Vas-y, c'est parti.
10, 9, ignition sequence start.
Hello and happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Loretta Cernowski from Got Spouse Need House, and I'm here with Jeff Williamson, my co-host, and we have a very special guest today to launch off our podcast. We have Hannah Ward. Hello, Hannah. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and who you represent?
Yes. Hi, good morning. So my name is Hannah Ward. I am the Senior Catering Sales Manager here at Caesars Republic Scottsdale in Old Town, located right next to Fashion Square Mall. We're a brand new property, opened in March of this last year. So we're still getting our footing a little bit, but yeah, we're here and we have a great space for weddings, and we're excited to kick off wedding season here in the spring.
So can you tell us what makes your venue a special wedding venue?
Yeah, so I think the biggest draw is it's called the Camelback Veranda. It's an outdoor ceremony and reception space that can hold up to roughly 300 persons that overlooks Camelback Mountain. And, we get the sunset. It's absolutely stunning. So photos are amazing for couples, which they love. And then I think the other huge factor for us is just our walkability to Old Town. So we always like to tell our couples, your guests can just take the elevator home, so they can, walk to various restaurants outside of what we have here on property. They can walk around Old Town, go to the mall, go to the wedding, and take the elevator home.
It's probably great for if the couple has out-of-town family, because there's so much to do in that area.
Yes, that's exactly right. I always say we're so lucky to live where we do and be surrounded by, a dozen stunning resort-style properties. But the give and take with those is that they're not walkable. So
Right.
we offer the view that a resort has, with Camelback Mountain, but we offer the walkability as well that many don't have.
Understandably. Through the course of starting this company, I realized exactly how busy the wedding industry is. Do you know about how many weddings that you would have a year?
Yeah,
so wedding season in Scottsdale?
So wedding season with us, I would say, is the peak months are October, November, March, and April. Of course, you get weddings, on the shoulder on both ends of those. But yeah, October, November, March, April, biggest wedding months. Again, we're still within our first year, so it's a little hard for me to gauge where we'll land on weddings per year. At my previous property, we were doing between 30 and 40 a year.
Wow. So I know you're all about the food with your job. So when couples start planning their wedding menu, where do you recommend that they start?
I think the best place to start is just to not rush into anything. I think there's a lot of, you get engaged and you're excited and the anticipation, and you just want to plan everything right away and make decisions quickly. I think the biggest thing is just take a breath, look everything over, think about it, and just don't rush into anything. It's, food, of course, is very important, but it's just food. So focus on the big stuff, and then let's talk, the sauce you want on your steak.
And I'm sure that you're there to help guide them. Do the couples have any influence on designing the menu?
Absolutely. Yeah. It just depends on the couple. Some people are big foodies and have, want to talk about every last ingredient that goes into everything. And other people, frankly, just don't care as much. It just depends on the couple and what they're interested in. But yeah, as far as, flexibility and making adjustments or substitutions to what we have built into our existing packages, very flexible. I always tell anybody, if you don't see something on our menu that you have to have at your wedding, just tell me. We'll make it happen.
Okay. So, what would you say is a common misconception about wedding catering?
I would say that that it's boring. I don't think wedding catering anymore is boring. I think a lot of hotels, catering companies have become a lot more flexible in what they are willing to do and offer, or that it all has to be the same. I think in the last 5 years or so, we've seen a really great resurgence in food and foodies. I think a lot of it is where we live and the restaurants that we're lucky enough to be surrounded by.
Uh-huh.
But people are just a lot more into food than even 5 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. With the Food Network and all these food shows that we all watch and magazines and celebrity chefs and all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
which you have your own celebrity status in your own venue. Can you tell us a bit about that?
We do. So we have a restaurant on property. It's called Luna by Giada. So Giada De Laurentiis is, a noteworthy Food Network chef. I believe she has a show coming out on Amazon soon. And she's been around for years and years and years. And our wedding menus are actually all designed by Giada. So all of our wedding packages and recipes are Giada's recipes.
Oh, I did not know that now. That
Mhm.
makes that so much sexier.
Yes. So, and I get questions on that from couples. What does that mean? Because she is an Italian-based chef. She incorporates. She's from Rome. She was born in Rome, and so she incorporates her roots and her Italian cuisine with mixing in a bit of that California cuisine as well. She's based in California now. So basically, on our wedding menus, you'll see all of the quote normal things you'd see anywhere else. So your chicken, your steak, your fish, but we also incorporate a lot more pasta and Italian inspired dishes than, I think what you'd see elsewhere. And that doesn't mean you have to do that if you don't want to, but
Sure.
it does make it interesting and different, I think, than a lot of packages you see elsewhere in the Valley.
Of course. And so, are you noticing any kind of current food trends, that people are gravitating to? You know
Yeah,
how we have like the cupcake cake and all that kind of stuff. So, what's the trend?
I think the biggest thing we're still seeing is incorporating interactive elements for your guests. So whether that's, a chef tossing pasta in a fresh Parmesan wheel, or I've seen a lot of lately late night snacks coming out onto the dance floor, like an actual person piping cannolis, on the dance floor and handing them to your guests, as opposed to walking to the station or the dessert table or what have you. So just those little elements that are fun, interactive, but doesn't take up time or space in your timeline of the evening, which I think is important too.
And do you add like a seasonal, like a fall menu, a winter menu, spring? Do you use seasonal ingredients?
So, yes, we will incorporate seasonal ingredients. We don't keep them listed on our wedding packages just because, couples are planning anywhere from a year and a half to a year out. So, to help us just on an operations side, it makes it so we're not constantly having to change and update the menus. But when couples come in for their tastings, we can, of course, because we like to plan tastings within 6 weeks of wedding day, and then can incorporate, seasonal items at that point.
So, what entails a tasting? So, if I'm getting
Yeah.
married and I phone you and say, Hannah, I'm interested in having my wedding there, what is the tasting and what does it look like?
So tasting happens after contract signing.
Okay.
Typically, the only time we'll do or accommodate a tasting prior to contract signing is with if we have weddings that require any type of special cuisine. So a lot of times Southeast Asian or Indian weddings have very specific flavor profiles that are important to those couples. So we will often, accommodate a tasting prior to contracting for those type of events. But tastings after contract signing, and like I said, typically within that 6 week range prior to wedding date. So, and a lot of questions I get, is, well, if it's 6 weeks out, how am I sending out my invitations with pre-selected menu cards of the guest to choose, steak, chicken, beef,
Right.
or fish? I always tell them just, prior if you're going to offer a fish, a steak, and a chicken option, just listed that way. And then you come in for the tasting, and in my opinion, it's not about the actual piece of protein. At that point, we're dialing in your sauces, we're dialing in your sides, we're talking about the dressing that you want on the salad. We're honing in on the appetizers you'd like to offer. So it's about taking the protein that you already know you want to offer your guest, and then really ramping up and dialing in everything that goes with it. So do you want, a beurre blanc on the fish? What type of demi glaze do you want on, the filet? And then we just kind of mix and match until everyone's happy.
Yeah, of course. So what about things like, now there's a lot of people that are vegan, gluten-free. How do you incorporate that? So obviously not the guests are all not going to be all gluten-free. So what do you do in that case?
I think there's two scenarios. So let's say couple has no dietary restrictions, but they know that their guests do. I always tell my couples, don't get in the weeds. So don't plan your menu around the 1 or 2% of your guests that have certain dietary restrictions and needs. Plan for the group, not for the individual. So at that point, we're planning for the entire group. And then I always ask, of course, for any type of dietary restrictions that any guest has. And then we'll create a special plate or meal based around those handful of guests. Now, on the flip side, if bride and groom are vegan, or if the couple is vegan, gluten-free, whatever have you, and if that's something that's very important to them. I did have a couple once that was vegan, and it was important that their entire menu was vegan.
Okay.
Of course, we can do that too. I recently had a bride who was gluten-free, and so we had a special dish made for her. And then the entire cake was gluten-free. So there's ways to incorporate what's important to the couple while still catering to the entire group.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's talk about an important part for the couples, their budget.
Yeah.
So what are some of the factors that affect their catering budget, and how do you help them stay within that desired price range?
This is always one of the biggest topics with couples.
Sure.
Is budget.
Of course, it's so everything's expensive.
Everything's expensive. I always, I want my couples to be realistic. Prior to contracting, I always send an estimate based on, what we've talked to prior, type of package they're looking for, things like that. So that way they can see tax, service charge, bartenders, they can see everything hit that bottom line. I don't think a lot of couples factor in tax and service charge. Our service charge here is 26%, which is pretty average for, the resorts in the area. Most range between 24 and 28. We're at 26, and then plus tax, typically tax on another, third of what you think you're spending. So I think that's important. So prior to any contracting or anything like that, let's just get that out of the way. Let's see what everything looks like on the bottom line and see if we're still, within that range for them. And then again, like I said, just being realistic of what they want. So let's say a couple wants, they want to add on a seafood display at cocktail hour, and they also want to do a late night snack, but their budget is X. And I know that if we add on these items, we're going to blow the budget out. We need to look at a smaller package price, a lower package option to give more wiggle room within that budget so we can add on, the auxiliary items that they're wanting.
Okay. So before we wrap up, I know you've had experience with lots of couples and you probably see sort of the same determining factor. What's one piece of advice that you would give to the couples out there that are starting to plan their wedding?
I think biggest piece of advice, number one, is to have fun. I think you can get in the weeds a lot with weddings. There's a lot of moving parts, money, family. There's a lot of factors involved that sometimes can pull from, why we're here, which is to get two people married. So I think keeping that at the center of it, is the most important thing. And number two is hire a planner. Have a planner. We require a planner here on property. Most properties in the area do. And they can kind of keep track of all of those items for you. They can help you with your budget. They can be the main point of contact with your millions of vendors so your email isn't blowing up every day. So have fun, keep why we're here at the center of attention, and then have a planner.
Yeah, wow, okay. And where can our listeners find out more information about wedding catering at your venue?
Yeah, so we're at CaesarsRepublicScottsdale.com. That's our website. You'll find a tab up there for weddings. My information is in there as well. We're at Caesars Republic AZ, I believe. Yeah, Caesars Republic AZ is our Instagram handle. You can DM us and it'll find its way to me as well. And then you can reach out to me directly, email, phone, cell.
Okay, after the show, we will repost the podcast and our recording, and we'll put all your contact information. And thank you so much for being on the show. Before we go, we just want to remind you that Got Spouse Need House is a website specifically dedicated to a team of highly qualified real estate professionals that deal with newlyweds and engaged couples as a resource. And when you are ready for that big step to buy or sell your property, you get a 10% credit at closing, which helps you a little bit, especially after all the expenses. And Jeff Williamson is our preferred lender. Jeff, what's happening in the market? Everyone's wondering.
I've been saying lately, it's been annoyingly consistent as far as what rates are doing. We did see a nice drop a couple months ago. Then they came back up a little bit, but now we're starting to see some relief. So depending on the type of loan, depending on a lot of factors, I think that we're going to continue to see rates trending down through into the new year. So that's the good news. We're not like we were a couple years ago, knowing that there were some tough days ahead and watching them consistently go up, along with, different an array of different types of products too that can cater to a wider audience, where it seems like so many people just don't or can't fit into that your typical box, and we've been exceptional about bringing on more products that it will help someone get into a home that has maybe a unique situation or what. So the key word is flexibility. We've really committed to coming up with different ways to be able to secure financing for buyers, and that's along with all of your other products, like your down payment assistance and those, if that's something that you would need. But again, probably for another conversation, but there are a lot of newer ways that someone can secure a home, and that's not just in the first time home buyer arena. It's in the luxury market, investor market, products that can help people buy investment homes with no income qualification. It's based on the rents. So just different things out there that allow us to be creative and allow buyers to be creative as well. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. But the big question is always rates.
Yeah.
And we are definitely seeing them improve. We'll see. I think they said a 66% chance now the Fed will lower in December another quarter. We'll see about January, but again, that's not directly tied to mortgage rates. It does have an influence on them. But I'm confident that we will see rates continuing to come down through 2025. And I personally believe that they could be at levels we were before we saw those rates during COVID. I don't think we'll get back there, not close, but at least heading that direction for sure.
Well, that's great. Thanks for the update. And Jeff will be here every week to give us an update on what's happening in the mortgage arena. Next week, 'tis the season, and we have a special guest talking about destination weddings. We do live in Arizona, but I'm Canadian. Hannah shared with me she's from Ohio. So some brides like that like to get away to someplace, a warmer destination, and we're going to have information about that. So Loretta Stronowski and Jeff Williamson checking off. Thanks again, Hannah. Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.